Hello and thank you for joining us. My name is Ben Sheen, and with me today is Rebecca Keller to talk about the possible decline of globalization. So Rebecca, I've heard a rumor that globalization is finished, it's dead. Is this true?
No, that's not quite the best way to describe it. It's shifting. When the container ship came along about 60 years ago, that really changed the metrics for how costs and production were done. So it was now cheaper to produce goods in countries with low labor costs and then ship them back to where they were assembled and then finally ship them to the final market. So supply chains became incredibly complex and diverse and had multiple nodes. And that's really the globalization we know today. But technology is changing that. Advanced manufacturing techniques, software-based technologies, 3D printing, they're all combining to bring globalization into a more condensed form.
So we've always had trade in some form or another, be it, trade between tribes, trade between city-states, and as we saw the advent of sail and even the Industrial Revolution and steam and all these routes open up, it's really changed the way that countries interact and communicate and trade with each other. So what's different now? Do you think we're seeing a revolution?
Yeah, I think we're in the beginning of the next industrial revolution, so to speak, and this one is led a lot by robotics and, again, software-based technologies. And it's changing the calculus, so to speak, where labor costs are no longer as an important factor. So you can have a slightly higher labor cost with a slightly higher educated population to do manufacturing now. So we think there might be more of a regionalization of trade. Of course, raw materials still are located where raw materials are located. So there's going to be a global aspect to all of this. And we could see some specialization where you still see trade between the regions, but there's likely to be more trade between regions like NAFTA, for instance.
So you mentioned the role of the workforce in all this, and traditionally up-and-coming countries have relied on their ability to supply fairly cheap labor, which has made it, manufacturing costs low in those countries. Is this something we expect to continue or decline in the face of this emerging new technology?
Right, so that's the Chinese model, basically, and the other East Asian countries before it. It's not going to decline immediately. It's still available right now. So China is moving out of their low-end manufacturing for export model into one that's more consumer-based domestically, and they want to do more high-end manufacturing. So there need to be countries to replace that. But the window is narrowing, and the number of countries that are able to exploit that economic growth model are going to be smaller and smaller as the years and decades move on.
So technology is a big aspect of this, and you specifically mentioned additive manufacturing. How is that actually going to change the way that goods are produced and shipped, or not, as the case may be?
Right. So additive manufacturing is one smaller part of this whole greater software-based revolution. But the way additive manufacturing changes traditional manufacturing is in traditional manufacturing, there's a high capital cost because with each new product, you need a new mold or you need a new process to develop it. But with additive manufacturing, you can simply program the same machine to do the same thing. So there's not the same capital investment with each new product development. Additionally, you can produce multiple components on the same machine, so you don't need as many nodes to your supply chain.
So what sort of timescale are we looking at? Because we're starting to see big leaps forward in 3D printing, especially when it comes to metals, but the technology is not quite there yet. What sort of timescale are we looking at?
So probably decades for the whole transition to be completed, certainly. We're going to see it happen in niche markets sooner rather than later. Automotive, aeronautics are certainly places where we'll see it sooner. And that has more to do with the advancements in robotics, increases in dexterity, and capabilities of artificial intelligence. Electronics is another sector. We'll probably see it earlier, but that's still on the decade time frame. But that's the kind of thing we're looking for. Costs need to come down still. So there's still a lot of room for improvement before this transition is complete.
So what countries do we expect to see at the leading edge of this revolution?
So obviously the ones that are developing the technology. That's the traditional powerhouses in the developed world. We have United States, parts of Europe, Japan, South Korea. But we also think China can play a very strong role in this transition because it is going through its own transition. It's seeking to become a higher end manufacturer versus the low end model. And it's got a very strong engineering base and a strong government directive towards this.
And they recently put in a lot of money to buy a major German robotics firm, didn't they?
Absolutely. There's also that aspect where they are looking towards external investment to gain knowledge as well.
Gosh, so definitely something we'll be tracking moving forward.
Absolutely.
For more on this subject and many more, please continue to read stratfor.com.